Hey everyone, we're going to be playing some Mountain Blade 2. This has been some gameplay that I've been having just fun on the side that I wanted to share with you all. It'll allow me to talk gaming with you guys as well as muse on history topics. So yeah, the game is awesome. This is not a sponsored video, it's just me sharing, like I said, gameplay that I've been really enjoying. So Mountain Blade, for the uninitiated, is going to be an RPG game that has both a single player campaign and a multiplayer setting. This is the multiplayer setting that I'm playing here. Basically, it throws you into maps and then you command your little squad. First person or third person here where you control a single guy, you can give orders, and then you go ahead, you do movements, you can shoot, you can charge, you can strike, you can block, all of that. Whereas in the campaign, basically you're going to come in here and you're going to do the same thing, but it has campaign elements where you can rank up, equip your troops, build a warband, and build out your kingdom. So I'm going to be playing here as Cavalry, and I'm going to be playing as a kind of a guardman to my infantry on the ground here. So feisty guy comes up and I just knock him right on his ass. That's one of the things you definitely want to do as a cavalry force here, is play nice and tight when you have nearby friendlies who are exposed. So for instance, the archers here. And good thing I did that, because look at the horde of enemy, and these are all commanded by individual players plus, you know, a couple 5 or 6 cavalrymen assigned to them that are AI. But it just goes to show, when all of this is individually controlled, how crazy and hectic these battles are. And this is what I really appreciate from Mountain Blade, is the immersion into these sorts of battles, as opposed to something like Total War or other strategy games where everything is on the unit level, where everything controls and moves as a rigid block. Mountain Blade really gives you the sense of fluidity in the past, and that's why I really like it as, again, a sense of immersion and a case study on what it was like to be here as a cavalry commander. How do you control cavalry? You know, on the one hand, yes, here it's somewhat easy in the sense that I can see icons, I have over the shoulder, the enemy is emblazoned in blue, it's fairly easy, but even at this, you know, with this much help, it's still quite confusing as the cavalry circle about. I mean, look here, how do you tell what's going on? So yeah, just experiencing what it's like on the ground for me is awesome. But I'm trying to play nice and tight on my guys, occasionally charging out. And this is one of the things that I think you'll understand if you read depiction of battles from antiquity, is going to be oftentimes you have the cavalry wings that get engaged, it's a furious brawl on the flanks, quick rapid strikes, charges into each other, and what you're going to be seeing here oftentimes happen with cavalry battles as well is circling about. You know, you do your strikes, your charges, you get some distance, you circle about. So that's kind of the rhythm of the cavalry battle, and eventually the enemy is going to tuck tail and run. At that point, that's when you pursue. Oftentimes, like I was saying, with when you read depictions of these cavalry engagements in antiquity, basically when the cavalry went out, they're going to chase their opponents off into the sunset, quite literally. We have accounts, for instance, at various battles of the cavalry just not returning, either pursuing the enemy until they killed all of them, or pursuing the enemy off the battlefield, pursuing then to go to the enemy's war camp to sack it. And it really takes a skilled cavalry commander to have the presence of mind to rein in your troops, shake off, you know, the blood feud and all that you have raging in you, the adrenaline, rein in your men, circle back around, and flank the enemy with now your open cavalry. And this is what distinguished strong cavalry commanders. The cavalry coming back at the Battle of Cannae was one of the important moments where they came back and were able to finish off the Romans and close them. And it really took the cavalry commander to have, again, the presence of mind. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm witnessing here. But yeah, I'm going to be cycling between different cool moments of gameplay. We're going to be starting off here with the fluidity of the cavalry engagements, because it's one of the things that I think Mountain Blade it's in the title, Mount and Blade. This is one of the things that I think the game does really well that is very unique. So I've been quite enjoying it, playing as various commanders. And yeah, you'll be seeing a variety of maps here. This is going to be a desert one, which I quite enjoy. Good for cavalry engagements and a lot of wheeling about. You'll notice when you play here, again, cavalry, you don't want to be stuck in too quick. Come in, do your lancing blows, and then circle about and look for other opportunities. Here I have a light lancer. We're going to be playing one of the factions here that I believe is going to be modeled after the Sarmatians or some of the steppe tribes. You can play as kind of these pseudo-Mongols. And that's kind of the thing with this game that's really cool. It's set in the kind of migration period, or inspired by the migration period of late antiquity. So you have Byzantines, you have the Celts, you have like Dacians, you have Oh, and take a look at this. I love the executions. And all of those are skilled. You can aim at different places. You can block based on where your enemy's blows are coming in. So it's quite a difficult game to master. But anyways, like I said, there's a ton of different factions that you can do. You can have the like North African Berbers and all that. It's very cool to have the asymmetry of them come together in different tactics. And here I'd imagine I may you see the Kuzite there. That's going to be, for instance, the Mongolians coming in. And here we're going to have another engagement that I wanted to show you. The reason I'm showing this is we've been showing a lot of cavalry gameplay, and here I'm going to be swarmed by cavalry. But luckily my skirmishers here are armed with spears. And you're going to notice the storm raging around us as we have to circle on all sides to try and fend the cavalry off. Some buddies over there positioned a little bit out in the open. And now we're going to turn around and we're going to unleash on the horsemen, who are now going to notice me and come back around for a second strike. But yeah, this was really cool. And you can imagine how nerve-wracking it would have been to be, again, putting ourselves in the mind of these players here. Put yourself, in the face of a cavalry charge like this. One of the things about cavalry is, horses don't really want to charge humans. It's one of the things that you really have to train a horse to be able to do. And usually if there's a shield wall that doesn't break and it stays rigid, the horse will rear up and it won't want to go there, because it's essentially you're telling the horse to run into a wall. It won't do that. So typically what makes a cavalry charge work is, well, the humans. The men in the battle line are going to be too scared. They're going to buckle. They're going to break. And so you can imagine, put yourself in this position here, how desperate it would have been circled around these trees. Probably you're going to want to break and run for it and not stand in the battle line up to these war horses. And ultimately that's what happened to the Romans at Carrhae, where you have the Parthians come in, charge, repeatedly lure them out, bait them with arrows, and eventually draw them out of their formations. Now in this case, I'm perhaps representing someone who's a little bit more well-drilled. I have the advantage of having both spears and bows, which means I could have fought back against the cavalry there. Anyways, in this engagement, we were able to repel that cavalry charge and now circle back around. One of the things you'll notice as well on the map here I haven't mentioned is these capture points that are sprinkled around it. It makes sure that people flow around the battlefield and it's not just a fight to the death. You can get points from capturing different strategic areas. Starts off with 3 and then eventually it whittles it down to 1 to try and focus up the gameplay. But anyways, here you're going to be seeing some of the cool animations. So for instance, cavalry coming up, boom, he gets killed, and we both get knocked over. So I really love the physics of this game. It has some wild elements to it. So that's a bit of the kind of infantry versus cavalry that I wanted to show you. There's going to be some more gameplay coming up shortly, which is going to be me as some infantry holding out. Look at that horde of enemy in the distance. Myself and my ally are doing a last stand gloriously on this hill, outnumbered perhaps 3-1. So the enemy's coming in, and you can see these troops are going to be with heavy axes. They do really a lot of damage, and so I have to be very careful with my engagement. So myself and my ally are going to be pulling back on this hill, holding out. Luckily, the enemy is engaging with us piecemeal here, so I'm able to come forward, tank some of these blows with my shield in the front, and allow the flanking archers to fire into these guys. Now, would this sort of engagement have happened ever historically? I mean, like I've been saying, this is pretty small scale compared to battles of antiquity, but you could imagine small engagements like this taking place at the corners of a battlefield, or perhaps during some sort of frontier raid or things like that, and you can see just how hectic it gets. Actually, it reminds me when we were talking about early Roman history, a lot of the battles would have gone like this, where you have small groups, raiders, that appear in the distance. As the enemy responds in clusters, you stay fluid, and then eventually, as the enemy does sort of form up enough ranks, they'll make a shield wall. Organically, you make a shield wall, and then, again, to pull on psychology, you guys are then going to face off and try and see who's going to chicken out, who has the highest, baratus, or whoever can cheer the loudest will show that they're most confident, and hopefully the other shield wall will run. So very animalistic behaviors. That's one of the things that this game doesn't really have, at least in multiplayer, is a system of morale. Because you can imagine here how scared my guys would have been. We're circled from all sides, and we go down for the count there. So a glorious last stand. We put up a brave fight, but we're going to be killed pretty much to the man here. I'm going to be one of the last couple guys left standing, trying to take more and more out with me, but I'm going to be overwhelmed. So here is going to be another battle, again showing infantry versus infantry with some of the archers, but a little bit more tactically. So you can see it's not all just about charging and bashing. There is some maneuvering in this game. So what I'm doing here is with my rabble, very, very cheap troops, numerous but poor quality. I'm going to be trying to bait out the enemy higher quality infantry to engage with me, slowly moving around the flank, shuffling, trying to get them to present their back to our archers on the hill so that our archers can shoot in. But it looks like my archers there decided not to take that moment. So what I'm going to do is, okay, circle around and pluck at the enemy archers here. So you'll notice there's a lot of little small-scale unit tactics going on, and that's what I really appreciate about this game. Play your cards right, be patient, and you can really turn the tide of battle. And again, you know, we just did that recent video on what made the Roman army so effective, and a big part of it was small, maneuverable units with able commanders, able officers, the centurions commanding maniples or cohorts. You can see on here, the small scale flexibility allows you to really get a lot done on the battlefield and, you know, exploit battlefield opportunities. So this is, in a nutshell, showing why the Romans were so powerful, their ability to do that on the battlefield in a small scale. But anyways, this is going to be another engagement. I'm going to be playing here as a faction that does represent pretty much some sort of like Viking-esque faction from the north, so I have my Viking shield wall here. The enemy is going to be something that represents a bit more Teutonic, sort of Byzantine, but probably more Norman. But anyways, shield walls facing off against each other, and then finally we're going to close in for the fight once the cavalry has broken up the enemy formation. So again, very small representation of what might have happened on a battlefield in a large scale. Combat is always messy here, a lot of friendly fire going on. I need to learn to curb that. But anyways, here comes in the rabble. I'm going to try and start laying the smackdown on these guys. And rabble do go down pretty easily. But you'll be seeing in a clip later how they, in vast numbers, they can actually swarm more elite troops. But anyways, one of the cool things you can do is as the enemy forces and the AI-controlled forces kind of bash from the front, as you, the human-controlled player, you can go around the flanks and try and get some cheeky blows. There I got a couple kills, but ultimately my force was knocked out. Here's another battle where we're going to basically fight over a bridge and allow the troops to just bash at each other from the front. And this is again where the Mountain Blade system does seem kind of funny. So here you can see the human players all sending their AI to fight in the front, literally bashing at each other. So this is where I do have to comment and say that, hey, this is not very historically accurate. I mean, yes, at a certain point, shield walls would come in and just bash at each other. But all too often in movies, it's depicted as, you know, you bash at each other forever, and then eventually it breaks into one-on-one fights. And that's kind of what you see in Mountain Blade. But in reality, the way a lot of the battles went is what people kind of term the, I think it's the pulse, theory, where basically we don't really know how battles worked out, but one of the theories is that when people got close into combat, there'd be spurts and cycles of action where people would come in, fight one another, clash, and then pull back a couple feet, rest, cycle troops in, and rinse and repeat. Yeah, and what you would have seen here, you know, this is potentially a lull in the fight as the troops have pulled back. This is when your skirmishers can come back in. This is where your own troops could hurl javelins or pick up stones and throw things at each other. So that's what I'm representing here. I'm also going to be showing you a little bit of the cheeky sniping that you can do as a, a human-controlled player. So I'm going to be trying to pick off the enemy forces, telling my own guys to stand back and slowly sniping off one at a time the enemy forces. Now, the other commander is going to be wisening up to my tactics here, but I'm getting a good amount of kills. Oh, and here he comes. So I'm going to try and hop out of there, but I do get finished off, unfortunately. So anyways, that makes me question, were there ever, little snipers on the battlefield like that, coming up close on the flanks, sniping at each other, trying to eliminate officers? Not really. When it comes to large-scale battles, there's really not much room to that. The closest you'd get would be in some of the opening stages of combat, which is where the skirmishers get engaged in the front, screening the, both forces as they deploy. That's when you might have had some early sniping, some really fluid engagements like you're seeing here, skirmishers moving up, finding local cover. But really, once the battle gets underway, there's no real room to maneuver as a small infantryman, especially as a bowman by yourself to get in position to snipe officers. You didn't really see that until long-range, rifles and stuff in the future. Now, that doesn't stop And take a look at this. We actually came in from the back and completely sandwiched these forces. So again, tactics on show there. But anyways, about these archer snipers, you know, this is going to be an example of, hey, maybe it did happen in certain instances here. So for instance, this is us, let's say, perhaps sieging a castle. Yes, sieges were oftentimes, you know, big affairs where everyone would storm the walls, but a lot of the times it would be, you know, forces keeping their distance, maintaining the blockade. There would be sallies, there would be counter sallies, and that's when you could potentially have snipers in this asymmetric terrain, especially as a defender, you know, sniper up in the parapets, shooting enemy forces. And here potentially what you have is, I'm reminded of like some brigands on the frontier here, shooting at some Roman troops or Byzantine troops, slowly pulling back into the forest. Perhaps we're local raiders, and these are the garrison forces pulling us back. So I always have these little ideas flashing in my head as I'm playing Mountain Blade. But yeah, I really like the fluidity of Mountain Blade here, having a lot of fun with it. And it just goes to show, you know, archers can try and pick off forces like I was doing there in the beginning, but inevitably heavy infantry is going to force you back, and that's what you're seeing there. I'm going to swap over to some other gameplay, which is going to be a nice little ambush I set up. We'd been having some problems with cavalry in previous rounds, so I decided to pick Spearman Rabble, wait in this pass, and then call in my spearmen to come in right when I saw the cavalry, and there's just hordes of them coming in here. So now my rabble with pitchforks are going to be coming out and slaughtering these noblemen, so very much like a Braveheart type moment that I'm really loving. If there was a command to moon people, that's what I would have been doing in the streets right there. Yeah, very, very hectic fighting, and I really enjoy it. Although at times, you can see there, I'm struggling to land some blows, which is when I'm happy to have a bunch of rabble to do it for me. The AI does seem to land some pretty consistent blows from time to time. Here comes the cavalry. Ooh, and I do spear one of my guys potentially in the ear there. But there you go. Gonna be spearing down these nobles. A couple more coming in. But successfully, we've been able to hold back two mixed groups of cavalry. Perhaps it might have even been three from circling around our flank. So this is going super well. And there he goes. He goes down. The troop is still alive. And I spear him right in the face. So this game is absolutely freaking brutal. And yeah, another thing that, you know, if this was historical, you'd imagine the ground in this ambush site licked with blood and mud, and just a gruesome sight. So here comes another guy, and boom, gonna dismount him there. And botching a little bit of the final kill there, but we're gonna try and finish off the last of these forces. And the horses there running for the hills. The last guy's gonna try to come and get us, but he's gonna sense the way things are going, and that last cavalryman is gonna bugger off here soon. So the ambush has been successful. There you go. They're gonna charge off. And my men here are going to rally back around, and later on in the battle, you're going to see me here circling around, waiting for the cavalry, and I'm going to be the one to tell him to come towards me, probably flicking him off and finishing him there for good. So here he goes. He's going to try and spear us. My guy's hitting the tree, unfortunately, but I'm going to have the glory of killing the last dude here with my band. So that was pretty awesome. Nice little ambush that we pulled off there. And yeah, you're going to be seeing various maps. There's about, 4 or 5 in the rotation, plus you can do some that are different when it comes to playing just individual controlled. Now I'm doing captain mode. There's like 1v1v1 mode. There's sieges as well that you can play on. Tons of variety. This other one that I really enjoy is a city map. And this is going to be an example of a rabble force coming in against a more elite force. So the rabble is going to be coming in and surrounding. Rabbles, when you spawn with them, they have about, I think, like 20 men versus the mid-tier troops in front of you have maybe like a dozen. And you can see the rabble, just with their sheer number, going to be circling around that shield wall, wailing on it. And as goofy as it does look, it does kind of remind me, you know, admittedly a little bit of what it might have been like on the front lines to try and take on a shield wall, how hard that is to crack with overlapping defenses. But this is kind of a funny moment. We'll cycle back to these guys as they try and hold out. I don't think we're actually getting any blows off. It's mostly going to be us just holding up the shield wall, but the rabble is finally going to kill us. So this is the variety of tactics that I've been able to see online is rabble armies, actually. You know, it doesn't matter how many good quality troops you have, they will eventually swarm you. That's what I did with my spearmen in that last clip. It's what they did here against our forces. And then this last clip here is going to be basically me trying out some of the barbarians. Wildlings, for instance, with two-handed axes, they can kill really, really quickly, but also don't have much defense. So when two of them go and face off, basically you end up melting each other's forces, and that's what just happened there. So I'm going to tell my guys to pull back. I still have 4 men left, and we're going to reform here as the enemy comes in again with their rabble. We're going to reform a bit of a wall here, and I'm going to try and find a flank to push back. So here comes with the overhead. Doesn't quite work. I'm going to try and come in, but that guy gets a flanking blow on me, so I'm slowly losing more and more men. I'm desperately trying to flip, and now I'm down to the last guy. I'm like, alright, let's pull back, try and reassess, but it looks like this rabble is going to be going down. Boom! Big whack right on the side of the head, taking him out. So when you do get the right engagements, it can be tons of fun. Here we go, this guy, whoosh. Try and take him out. But anyways, that's going to be it for the roundup of clips. Like I said, I've been playing this on the side. This is the best of the clips I've had for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed a bit of the gameplay and the historical musings. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these in the future. I am definitely down to share, and I'll see you out on the battlefield. See you guys.